What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. Today's episode comes direct from you guys. One of our listeners, he had joined our Discord and he posted up this Ford OBS truck and was telling us a little bit about the background on it. It's got to come and swap in, and he's done nearly all the work himself. It's a really cool story. So he's going to be joining us today to go through the background on the truck, why he gravitated towards not just the truck itself, but then also the engine, the transmission. I want to encourage you guys, make sure you head on over to our Discord. You're going to find a link down below. You're going to see a code on the screen. It's completely free to join. We got tons of sections. This is where we're able to really get amazing stories from the diesel community. It's from you guys posting up your trucks, asking questions, suggesting guests that we should have, or even topics that we should cover. There's places, if you have a Cummins, you got a Duramax, you got a Power Stroke, maybe you're in the market for a truck and you're wanting to know, hey, what are some things I should look out for with this LML or the 6.7 Cummins or this 11 to 14 6.7 Power Stroke. There's a lot of really knowledgeable people there, and I definitely want to see you guys over there. Also, if you're looking to be able to be even more involved with the podcast, if you want to be an executive producer for an episode, you want to have the ability to see episodes nobody sees anywhere else, we got a link down below for our Patreon. It's as low as $3 a month. And what that allows us to do is allows us to grow, allows us to get better, allows us to be able to do things that, quite frankly, we never dreamed we'd be able to do this. We didn't think we'd be on year 6 of doing a podcast talking about diesel trucks, but you guys have kept us going, supported us, and if you'd like to be more involved, it's a great way to do it. All right, let's get to today's episode with AD talking about his Ford OBS Power Stroke, his Cummins swap, all the work that went into it, and what his plans are for the future. AD, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you since you posted up your truck on Discord. And Ford OBSs are always really popular, and you got a lot going on under the hood. So I'm excited to have you on today, learn more about the build, your passion for diesel performance and building a truck, and get some other people out there excited if they got some projects sitting around they've been wanting to tackle. You've done a ton of that truck, so you'll be a great resource for them, and look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I been looking forward to it. I know that me and you have kind of been bouncing back and forth as far as schedule goes, but worked out, so appreciate it.
Yeah, it worked out perfect. So tell me a bit about the truck itself. What interested you in it? To start, was it have you always been a diesel guy? Was it something that maybe just got into recently? What's the story behind your interest in diesel, and then specifically this truck?
So in the 90s, I was pretty fortunate growing up. My dad owned a oil field business in southwest Wyoming, and he actually bought 4 OBS Fords brand new off the lot. And I was just a wee little kid, so seeing my dad roll up in a brand new OBS Ford, and it was like, I mean, it's been etched in me from when I was a child. But I remember driving down to Salt Lake from Evanston, Wyoming, and picking up a brand new 96 OBS cabin chassis, and me looking out the back window, checking out, looking at the open wheels in the back of it and stuff, because there's no bed on it. And it was a pretty cool experience, and that's what's got me hooked on them. So my dad actually currently still has an OBS. So
it's really interesting how trucks, when we're younger, they just get etched in our minds, whether it's a Ford OBS or a second gen or first gen Cummins or some of the GM trucks, or just they always stay with us. And then as we get older, we want to get one, and we want to do things to them. And as you thought about doing this, what kind of plan did you have in place for this truck, or what were your initial thoughts when you got it, of, hey, this is the build that I want to undertake?
So initially, the whole reason that this truck was even purchased was me and my dad were actually working in North Dakota in the oil field, and it came up for sale as a repo auction at a local bank in a small town of like 1,200 people. And we went and looked at it, and the guy's like, I wouldn't pay too much. The guy at the bank, he said, I wouldn't pay too much for it. He's like, go over, talk to the Ford dealer. And we took it over there, and they told us everything that was wrong with it, blah, blah, blah. So we went and talked to him. The guy's like, that's good running OBS, has a bad transmission, blah, blah, blah. You know what it's worth. They're worth, I mean, this was in 2011. So, they were selling cheap back then. They really were. So we ended up getting it that way was through me and my dad were actually working in North Dakota and had my mom go bid on it, and she's the one that actually won the truck for us for $1,300. So
Wow, that's a deal.
yeah, so it had obviously it was originally a 7.3 Power Stroke. When I got it, it had 300,000 miles on it. It was automatic, trans was shot. I made the mistake of putting another like just a factory, or not a factory remand, but a remand E4OD in it. And when I took the core in for the torque converter, the guy was like, "Man, this is a triple disc torque converter," that he was looking at that I took out, and I was like, whatever. As he hands me this like AutoZone torque converter, and I was like, well, that one don't look as good, but I was like, oh, whatever. Well, when I got the truck, it had some baby swamps injectors in it. It was intercooled. It had custom tunes on it. Had 35s, and it ate that transmission fast. It really did. It did not last very long. It lasted actually 1,000 miles out of the warranty. So at that point, I swapped in a ZF5 5-speed because obviously I was really kind of on a budget, but I wanted something that was reliable, and I didn't want to pay the money for a built auto at the time. So ended up swapping it for that, and drove it back and forth to North Dakota, back and forth to Wyoming, all over the place, chasing drilling rigs. And I ended up getting laid off from the oil field in like 2016-ish. And I kept the truck, of course, because, well, let me go back a little bit. In between there, I bought a 6.0 from my uncle. It was a clean one owner. I really regret getting rid of it because it was a 2006 F350 dually crew cab long bed, had 100,000 miles on it. It was mint condition, and just like me and you were talking about earlier, wanted a 6.4 because they make all kinds of power. So instead of me just keeping the truck because it was a good truck and whatever, I went down and bought a 6.4, and of course intake, exhaust, and a tune, and I was happy with a race truck with 600 horsepower. And they're fast trucks from the factory when you put that stuff on them. So, and anyways, got laid off. I still had this, and I ended up selling my 6.4 because I didn't want to have a payment and whatever. So I held on to it because it was actually the first diesel that I had bought. So held on to it and kept driving it. And the old 7.3 it was getting tired. I put 525,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And it had quite a bit of blow by, and you could tell that it was weak in a couple cylinders because when you would rip on it real hard, it really wasn't quite that smooth. You could definitely tell it wasn't 100%. And told myself I wasn't gonna pull it out and put another one in there until it died, and it would not die. So it was like, I wasn't really trying that hard. I mean, there's one thing to drive it hard, but there's another thing to be stupid to try to blow the thing up. And I wasn't doing that. I was just driving it like I normally would. And the way things happened, I actually bought a 7.3 that I was going to pull the engine and transmission out of to put in this truck from the company that I work for here. And me and a friend did some dealing and this and that. And next thing you know, I ended up with a P-pump 12-valve Cummins sitting there. And I still had the ZF6 from the Super Duty. And I really, at that point, I was like, I've always wanted a OBS with a Cummins in it. It was one of those things that I've always really liked the way the Cummins runs, just because of the fact that it reminds me of a small version of like a big truck engine, because it really acts just like a big truck engine in a lot of aspects. And, everybody has had their words with me about me pulling a 7.3 Power Stroke out to put a Cummins in it, but it is my truck and that was my choice. So I ended up doing a lot of research online. One of the biggest resources I actually found was the Fummins Tech page on Facebook that actually has around 26,000 members. And I mean, a lot of the guys are very helpful. They're actually more helpful than a lot of it's quicker to get on there and ask questions than to actually do the research. There's a lot of guys that are very, very good with helping you out and whatever. And then there's a lot of people that are actually suppliers that are also on there for the swap parts. You can go through companies like Diesel Conversion Specialists. There's quite a few others. You can buy full kits to swap them. And not saying don't go that route, but if you want to save some money to put some money in other parts of the build, piecing all this stuff together is definitely the way to go. That way you can do it exactly like you want to, and the part numbers of everything, and you've had your hands on every little bit of it, and that's exactly what I did. I used Wild Horse Manufacturing ZF6 adapter from the 12 valve to the ZF6. I used Carrot Customs engine mounts, and I did a lot of research on all this stuff before I, purchased any of it, because as you know, there's a lot of companies you buy and you have to end up modifying the stuff you get to make it work, especially when you're talking about doing a swap with something that didn't have the engine in it originally. So
now when you were thinking of, you're going to do the swap, and when it came to the engine side of it, or the power or the use, what were your goals there? Was it something you're setting up to be like the ultimate daily driver, be able to tow if you needed to, or was it a little bit more performance to it?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I still don't know. So the engine I bought is actually, so it was my friend's. We worked out a deal with me trading him for that 7.3 that was in that truck. And I, gave him cash on top, and there was a lot of trading and wheeling and dealing involved, but it is a mild built 12 valve. So it has hardened rods. It has delipped factory cast pistons, has main studs in it. And then it's fire ringed and studded and everything. And it's got a shied street cam in it, push rods, valve springs, the whole nine as far as that goes. So the engine will be able to handle basically anything that my wallet will be able to handle. I want to build the truck to be a daily driver, but I would like to try sled pulling with it. That's where I'm kind of torn, because you have to put quite a clutch into the truck to sled pull with it. And that right there will just straight erase the whole daily driver part, unless you're, there's certain give and take you have to have when it comes to, and of course, power wise, I would ultimately, like I said, I did own my 6.4, and it was about 600, with the tune and whatever on it. And I would really like for this truck to make around 600. So, and I think that you could still keep somewhat streetable with a 12 valve, since it's full mechanical. You get, people can argue all day long one way or another, but you get far past that as far as mechanical injection pump and all that stuff goes. It takes away a lot of the enjoyment of driving the truck when you're just trying to drive it smoothly. It really is, you know what I mean? It's
I think that's one of the things why that swap can be so popular, is because you start at a point where if you want 600, it's pretty, not necessarily easy, but I mean, you can attain it, say, easier than other platforms. Or if you want to take it to well past 1,000, you can. Or if you want to keep it at 400, 450, it's all right there. And I think that, if I was doing a swap, I would definitely look at that aspect of it. Is can I grow with it? So maybe you want 600 now, maybe in the future you want a little more, maybe you want to pull it back a little bit and just drive it every day. I think that's what makes it so cool about just the 5.9 in general, is the freedom you have with going so many different directions.
Exactly. And that was really my deciding factor in swapping a 12 valve. Well, ultimately what I wanted to do was put a 6.7 common rail in it. And I still could in the future. That's definitely not, out of the cards as far as doing that in the future. But everybody was telling me, oh, just build a 7.3, just build a 7.3. And, a lot of people, I'm 100% not against 7.3s. I absolutely love that engine. It's amazing. They are definitely more expensive and more challenging to make power with than a 12 valve. And, there's other aspects to it that make this swap, like you said, so desirable. I can pull the turbo off this truck in about 5 minutes. You can't do that if it had a 7.3 in it. not that that's something that you do all the time, but it's just an example of, the ease of working on a 12 valve, or really Cummins in general. They're fairly simple engines to work on comparatively to most other diesels.
It's
But
really
that's really what drove me to do a 12 valve swap, was a lot of the simplicity of it, ease of making power, easier on the wallet when it comes to that.
Yeah, I've done a few episodes with some guys who have 7.3s, and one of them built it. It's building it to race, and it was really cool to hear his perspective on it. And they've done some other episodes where they're extremely clean trucks, and the guys put so much time and effort into them. And it's been cool to see kind of the resurgence of the OBS body style, because like when I got into diesels, I really kind of honed in on the third gen. They were new at that time, and that's what I kind of gravitated towards. And I learned a little bit about Duramaxes. We talked about 6.4s and other things. But it seems like the OBS market and just the attention that they get is crazy. I see it on Instagram pages all the time. I don't remember the names of them, but they show trucks for sale, and it's like the price they command is way more than it used to be, and that's the aftermarket's grown for it, and the parts you can get from different places. And it's really been something cool for me to learn about, is how passionate people are who love that body style, and the attention and the way they build them is so cool. Whether it's a 7.3 that they're making tons of power with, or doing a swap, like you got a 12 valve with a ZF transmission behind it. Like, that's cool. It's so fun to be able to chat with guys like yourself and just learn more about the trucks, and then how you guys approach building them.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's crazy to see, especially like now you see the trucks coming out and whatever else, and you don't know what's going to be worth money in the future. It was kind of like the whole muscle car era. You didn't, nobody that grew up then knew that they were going to be worth what they're worth now. And my dad bought all those new, and I literally watched my dad drive a couple of those trucks. He beat them, because they're extremely durable trucks, and that's why a lot of them have lasted as long as they have. I mean, you really can't drive anywhere without seeing an OBS cruising around. And most of the time you'll see one that's a 7.3 power stroke. And like you said, a lot, the guys that do have them and that take really good care of them, these trucks can fetch a really big penny when it comes to, especially if they're all original. And this one, I mean, you see swap trucks sell all the time, and depending on what kind of condition they're in and what kind of effort somebody put into the swap, you can see them sell for quite a chunk of change. And that's not what I'm after, because I'm planning on keeping this. But like you said, they got a fan base for sure, and the people that have them have a big pride in them. And I love this truck. So
now, when it came to doing the work, and you get the parts together and everything, and you're going to set the motor in and do everything, did you do it all yourself, or did you have some friends help you, or some shops help you, or how did you tackle the actual swap itself from a labor standpoint?
So my friend offered for me to do the swap at his house, and I don't regret that whatsoever, because he had a forklift, and he had a lot of, he had a big semi tranny jack, and he had a lot of the tools that I didn't have, at my disposal for a lot of it. But I would say at least 95% of it, and most of it was anything that I needed help with. It was usually because it was either heavy lifting, I needed a spotter, needed somebody to hold the other end of a tape measure, fire watch, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I did basically everything from beginning to end on the truck. And what's really cool about this is actually I have a video of it last 2021 Memorial Day weekend was the last time that this truck actually ran with a 7.3 power stroke in it. So it wasn't that long ago, but it was from beginning to end, I really pushed myself on this. I saved a lot of money before I did it, obviously, because it's quite substantial. It is substantial, but it's not in in the grand scheme of things, because it's not like you're buying a new truck. You are just putting money into an older one, and it is cheap in reality. But yeah, I didn't really have any help of any shops or anything as far as helping me actually do the swap or anything.
What would you say was the toughest part of it, or what gave you the biggest headaches? Was it something electrical? Was it fitting something in? Was it just something you came across that was unexpected that you thought, I wish I would have known this before I got into it because I would have prepared for it?
Well, I don't want to necessarily say I wanted to know about or that I wish I would have known about it before, because I did, and I kind of knew how much work it was going to be, but it ended up being a lot more work. Was fitting the ZF6 in it. Everybody, because you won't even realize it until you see them next to each other, but a ZF6 is far bigger than a ZF5, and I actually cut the whole trans tunnel out of a Super Duty and put it into this truck so what I was after was ease of service in the future if I need to pull the trans in and out. And that was as far as the motor too, as far as the firewall goes and everything. Everybody tells you to massage the firewall or massage the floor to get the trans to fit. And it's like, you know what that means. They're just beating on it with a hammer. And wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to actually make things clearanced and make it to where, everything was easy to get in and out if I needed it to and whatever. But as far as putting that trans tunnel in there, that was the most time consuming. And also that it was at the point, you cut the trans tunnel out of your truck that was perfectly running 2 weeks ago, and you're just like, oh my gosh, what like really makes you think there.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear the different parts of it, because I've talked with some people have done swaps, and they talk about just getting the engine to fit and how they have to set it back into whatever platform they're doing it, or the electrical side was really tough. And I was really curious about the ZF6, and because I've seen some, not that I'm an expert on swaps or anything like that, but I've seen the ZF5s, but ZF6 is definitely more rare as far as what I've come across. And so I was definitely curious how that all fit together with the body, the engine, the interior, everything.
Yeah, and so one of the biggest tricks with putting a Ford transmission behind a 12 valve is, that with a Dodge transmission and a 12 valve, the starter is on the left side of the engine, and on a Ford, it's on the right side. So in order for me to fit the starter, the bell housing, the whole nine, fit a 4-inch downpipe past the starter and all that, it was a challenge. And not only that, the 7.3 ZF6 is actually, the bell housing is a lot larger than a 6.0 or a 6.4 ZF6. Those were actually the ones that are more sought after for swaps, because the bell housing is just the way it's shaped is more friendly for making it fit. So really, it was a challenge. It really was to make it fit. I was prepared for it because I had that truck that I had bought, and it was a Super Duty ZF6 from the factory. So, I had the whole trans tunnel that I was able to cut out of that other truck right there close to me. And, I prepared myself for it, but it was more challenging than what I was expecting, because you see pictures online and everything, and you see guys cutting the floor out with a grinder and all this. And like I said, I was glad my friend had some tools available. He had a nice plasma I was able to use, just whip out the floor. I mean, there's certain things like that make life so much easier when it comes to doing certain things, like, even just cutting the floor out like that.
How long did it take from when you first started to when you fired up the 12 valve and were able to drive it?
It was about five or 6 months, I would say, was about how long it was. And the first time I drove it, I was sitting on a steel milk crate, and the brakes didn't work very well. And I mean, my friend was trying to talk me, oh, you just get it finished before you drive it. And I'm like, dude, get in the truck. Like, we gotta at least go around the block. And I mean, after all that work, it absolutely fills you with joy when you actually go drive it around, and you're just like, and especially now that I have it more refined as far as, got the full interior in it and everything's all buttoned up, and it drives just like it came from the factory that way. And that was one thing that I was really after.
What's coming up next for it? Is it going to be getting into that sled pulling side, or maybe the power? Or there's some things you want to do, interior, exterior, appearance? What's kind of coming up next for you?
So what I'm planning on doing next is actually building a compound setup for it. And then doing some stuff obviously on the fueling side, because currently it's just it's just got a 160 pump, and it's just got a couple mods to it as far as AFC mods and stuff, factory injectors. It's got just factory HX35 on it, but my plan is to uh, bump up the fuel quite a bit, whether that be sending the pump off and actually having somebody go through it and make sure that it's 100%, putting either, I don't want to just throw delivery valves in it and, big injectors and go that way. I would actually like to send it out, because the P pump that's in it actually has quite a few miles on it, but I'd like to get it all refined that way. And then I would like to do since it's a manual, I'd like to do a quicker spooling set of compounds, but something that can still make 600 to 700, somewhere in there, and maybe even more than that. But I would just like it to be streetable, because right now it spools instantly, and it's like I would really like to get a set of compounds that are similar to that. And I'm going to be building it all myself, so it's going to be quite interesting. So that'll be first as far as getting some power to it. And then I would really like to get it painted. This is the original paint that's on it, and it's got, like I said, it has 525,000 miles on it. It's never been painted before. It's never had any body work done to it. Doesn't have any rust. Most of it will be a scuff and shoot. Have somebody repaint the truck completely. My plan is to paint it red again, probably the new modern Ford red though. Just more of a fire engine type color, but I want it to be a little bit brighter. And that's my plans. But one thing's for sure is I would really like to drive it and enjoy it some more, because really I've only put 200 miles on it.
Yeah.
Mainly because the weather recently, and we just got out of winter. I didn't want to, after doing the whole suspension and everything on the truck, I didn't want to go straight drive it in the salt here in Utah. So
Yeah, that's what's so, when I think of, I've never done anything like this, but if I did, I know I would have a lot of fun probably once it was done and drivable like yours is, but then being able to stop and go, okay, this pump has a lot of miles on it. I want to send it out, get it redone. I want to know exactly what was done to it, what kind of injectors I'm putting into it, and just have maybe even not just mental notes, but write it all down. And so intimately, like every part of that truck, everything that's going on with it, when it was replaced, what was done to it. There's just, I think as an enthusiast, there's just, I don't know, it's like this peace and serenity that you kind of get of knowing every little thing, every little detail about that truck.
yeah, and it after pulling the 7.3 out of it and putting this in there, I mean, I've put my fingers on basically almost every square inch of the truck. I know it inside and out now. And there's obviously going to be certain things that I will forget, because there's, a lot of stuff as far, a lot of stuff that goes into it that, you'll forget about, or, what did I do here? Or where's this wire run from? And, not that there's very many left, but you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
But there's a lot to be said as far as, there's a satisfaction in being able to go through a whole truck like that, and, having your mind set on a goal with the truck, and having everything once you're done, there's a lot to it.
That was one of the things that grabbed my attention when you posted it on our Discord server. Is it just, I could tell you had a lot of pride in the truck. I could tell that you had a plan with it. I could tell that it was something you invested a lot of time into, and those are always some of my most enjoyable podcast episodes to do, is to chat and see how you guys do this stuff, and the process that you go through with it. And I can't wait to see when you get it painted and you got the compounds on it, and you post up on there, let us know how it's doing, because it's a beautiful truck. And like I said, I know the time that you've put in, and it's so cool to see. Like you said, you've done about 95% of it, and just needed help when something was heavy, or you needed a spotter or something like that. And I think that's really at the the heart of, diesel enthusiasts is we're independent. We like to do things. We like to, kind of take these head on, learn on our own, figure it out, and put it together. So I think you've done a fantastic job. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to hear this episode or see it on YouTube, and definitely keep us updated, on our Discord. We'll have a link down below for people to jump on, and join. But yeah, post up pictures, let us know. I know there's some guys there that are, looking at doing swaps. They have OBSs and they're, doing tons of things. So it was really cool. And I appreciate you posting up and just saying, hey, check out my build. This is, this is what I've been working on, because it's a really cool project.
Yeah, I appreciate it big time. And thanks for creating the old Discord server and everything for everybody, because like we talked about, it reminds me a lot of the old forums. So more guys we get on there and the more minds we have, I think will benefit everybody. And I definitely will keep you updated in the future with the truck.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you guys definitely keep me on my toes over there there's tons of questions I can't answer, and I'm trying to find guests to get on and ask things, or you come along with a really cool build like this. And so I know people are going to be asking you stuff, but I appreciate your time today chatting with us. It's a beautiful truck. Look forward to seeing, all that you do with it. And I'm sure you'll inspire some people out there that maybe have wanted to do this, or they got a project they've been looking at, and, they jump in and build the exact truck that they want.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks, Patrick.
Don't forget, diesel fans, make sure and head on over to our Discord. You're going to find a link down below. I want to see you guys on there. We're trying to get to 500 members on there. We're super close. I know you guys can help us get there and do it. Post up your truck, ask questions, tell us if there's a guest or a topic that you want covered. It's a great place for all of us to be able to get together, be able to chat about parts, chat about things going on. It's a really cool place. Also, if you're looking to support the podcast even more, we have a link to our Patreon down below. It's a way to help us get better, help us grow. I want to give a shout out to a couple of our Patreon supporters that have done just that. Texas Diesel Supply, Wrights Diesel Services, Kaleb. We appreciate them. All of our Patreon subscribers, all of you who listen on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, subscribe on YouTube, follow our Instagram, Facebook. We appreciate all that you guys do for us. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.